So let's set the stage. It's my second event of 2018. There's a thunderstorm approaching, and my couple are awesome 80s people, and they have picked Back to the Future to kind of set the stage a little bit. So I'm playing the theme to that. They came into Power of Love and then went right into their slow dance. And no joke, this couldn't have been scripted any better. 30 seconds about into their first dance, lightning strikes. Now, I don't know if it struck the building. It definitely hit something of power. The lights go out for a brief second, just long enough that my equipment resets. And when I tell you it was the longest 45 seconds as a DJ that I've ever had. And I quickly, I just started shouting out to the crowd to start clapping, keep going. And everything was kept in great spirits. The power came back up on my equipment. Everything was good. So I thought. And I started doing some troubleshooting because one of my speakers didn't seem to be working. And I was, I had a dance set that I had to do, so I struggled through that. Everything was okay, at least from the crowd perspective. As soon as we get into cocktail, I quickly grab one of my other speakers, bring it over. That's not working either, and I'm starting to get really worried that I had some seriously damaged equipment. So it turns out one of my speakers must have either overloaded or something, because it was basically stuck at like a maximum gain. Nothing on the buttons had changed or anything like that, but it was playing incredibly loud. So I finally swapped that speaker out. Everything came back, and I was great for the rest of the night. So it almost seemed that I was out one brand new EV Evolve 50 speaker. I was a little upset about that, but luckily after some testing, everything was fine. So it was just a really odd set of circumstances. But from that point, I decided, there was just no way I was going to deal with a situation like that again. And it's not that I hadn't thought about having a battery backup just in case for situations like this. But for what you could find, they were either too big, too cumbersome, way too heavy. Especially for me being a mobile DJ that doesn't have a rolling rack or anything like that. So I had to do some research and check to see if there's any changes. And matter of fact, there are now 2 UPSs that ticks off all the boxes of what a mobile DJ needs for having a battery backup. But we need to kind of lay the groundwork of what you need to be looking for in a battery backup before considering using one in your system. All right, so first things first, there are a lot of UPSs out there. I mean, there's rack mount, there's the personal ones, there's small ones, there's large ones, there's definitely a few brands out there, and not all of them are the same. As a mobile DJ, there are some very specific requirements that you want to look at to make sure that they have it, because without it, you could really have some big problems having sensitive audio equipment and having this within your system. So let's start ticking off what features you need to be looking for when researching for a battery backup. There are 3 types of waveforms that are typical in a battery backup. The first one's called the square wave. Avoid this at all costs. If your equipment, you do not want this, and it's harmful. You can damage equipment. Stay away from it. The second one is called the modified sine wave, and while it's a little bit more graceful than the square wave, as you can tell in this diagram, it's jacked up. If your sensitive equipment, especially audio equipment, you're not going to like this. This can introduce hum, noise, a lot of different things, and just straight up damage your equipment. So it's not as obvious as the square wave, but definitely try to avoid this at all costs. And then lastly, you have the sine wave. And as you can tell by this diagram, it's the nice smooth peaks and valleys, no jaggies in there. This is what power looks like when it comes out of your outlet. And this is what you want to come out of battery backup as well. Up next is automatic voltage regulation, AVR. It's automatic, it's regulating voltage. It's pretty simple and straightforward. The biggest thing to think about here is this is where it kind of protects between the brownouts and some of the spikes. And with AVR, most battery backups nowadays do have some form of AVR with it. There are also 3 types of switch topologies, which is the design of how it goes from the main power over to battery. The first one is standby, and that's basically having a switch and a battery. The switch detects that the power's gone out, boom, switches over to the battery. This is the most inefficient way to do it. It takes some time, sometimes between, as little as 5, but you don't see too many in that realm. They're closer to 10 to 15 milliseconds. And unfortunately, with equipment like speakers and mixers and whatnot, that could be an issue, especially with like a digital mixer like I have. Having that long of an interruption definitely would cut it off, and I'd run into the exact same issue that I would before. Next up, you have line interactive, and the big difference here is the time to switch between being off the grid onto the battery is much shorter. You can find them as little as 2 milliseconds, but typically you're going to find them between 4 to 8 milliseconds, which is plenty of time for pretty much any type of DJ equipment that you would be using. Where you would not want to use this is with sensitive medical equipment. You need 0 milliseconds, and that's where the online design works. It's basically the battery's always on, and it's basically just being fed the power. This is there's just no interruption at all. The problem is these are very expensive, and it's actually just not necessary for what we need. So for line interactive solutions, this is your sweet spot of where price points kind of meet up with technology that will fit your needs. Up next, we have to talk a little bit of science. Watts, VA, capacity. So how do you right size this? What do you even need to know to do it? So VA is volt ampere and watts is watts. And essentially this is the amount of capacity that is available from the battery to distribute to your equipment. You do not want to hook up, say, 2 18-inch subs, top cabs, and lights and everything, and expect a battery backup of the ones I'm going to recommend here to be sufficient. You're most likely going to draw more than its capacity is available, and it just would be useless in your case. But if you're right sized, and like with mine, I've measured out that I wasn't going above 300, 310 watts. And with that, I knew I had some decent overhead between what I was drawing and what the battery was capable of. So again, while you're kind of speccing all this out, make sure that if you have very large equipment, maybe you want to use 2 of these, maybe you need to reconsider a design aspect. So if power goes out, maybe you're only running a couple things. Even in my design, I'm making sure that I'm limiting what is necessary so I can get through longer periods of time. And while most modern UPSs do have some type of noise filtering, you definitely want to make sure that you have some type of EMI and RFI filtering. This is going to ensure that your signal coming in to your system is clean, and you're not going to pick up any of those just wonky sounds or anything that could, buzzes, humming, and whatnot. So that is kind of a tall order, and it's actually why I hadn't used a UPS until recently. Everything that was out there in the market at those couple times that I researched, they were your typical server room, massively sized, tall, wide, heavy. They just weren't going to be practical for a situation like me and for most mobile DJs. The situation has changed considerably. In the past 2 years, 2 major brands have come out with a more affordable solution to produce a sine wave, which is critical in this case. And they're all in the smaller form factors. So now you're talking, under 30 pounds. You're talking a fairly compact size. And, it would just simply work in our situation. So given the situation I was in, I actually ordered 2. I know I needed something for the ceremony and reception. So I decided, different brands, let's check out, what one's better, if any one is better. And with that, here are the 2 that actually fit the bill. So after some exhaustive research, I finally found 2 units that meet the mobile DJ need. On my left here is a CyberPower 1500 PFC LCD. On my right here is the APC BR 1500 MS. Yep, they're a mouthful, but it's very important to know because there are identical looking units to these. that have not a square wave, but they do have the modified sine wave output. And you do not want that because, as we talked about earlier, that could damage your equipment, could introduce noise, hum, and the works. So look at these two units because these could be the savior for your DJ equipment. Comparing both of these, they look remarkably similar in size. The CyberPower here, it's just a hair taller, where the APC is just a tad deeper. You can tell by the APC that it has a little bit more matted look. They both are matted, but this one just looks like it might be able to take some scratches and a little more dings, fingerprints than the CyberPower. The CyberPower definitely has a bit more of a glossy front end, where the APC, really the only truly glossy point is where the LCD display is. To turn them on, the APC actually goes through a quick cycle. First, you'll see that it's coming in on power and showing that it is online. In just a moment, you're actually going to see it cycle through its battery. It shows 179 minutes of runtime left in it. Once it's done with its check, it's going to go back and it's going to show the voltage. For the CyberPower, we just hold on the button for a second until you hear it audibly come on. It will go through. You see that it shows that it's online. You'll notice that both of these do have the ability to silence the alarm, and it does save it in memory. So if you silence it once, it will silence it until you turn it back on. You'll see how much battery charge you have and whatever load that's coming on. Again, very similar in displays. You'll see that we're running on online power right now. The displays turn off. You'll only see it again if you actually turn on the panel or you having a power event, and we're about to do that now. So I'm going to switch the power off of this. And as you see right away, the APC triggered the LCD display. I guarantee you the CyberPower, while it took an extra like half a second to come up, it does immediately come over. Both of these react between 4 milliseconds and around 8 milliseconds of time, which is plenty for pretty much any piece of equipment out there. I've tested this out on all the equipment that I've had, and there was no interruption in power whatsoever. All right, so we're on the meter right now on APC. You can tell on online power. Here's a beautiful pure sine wave coming in from main power. We're going to cut the power on this. As you just saw, there was an interruption, that line that was just there. But as you see, the APC is putting out that nice sine wave. I'm going to kick this back over, and life's going to be good. All right, so as you can see here, we're back to a nice sine wave. Again, mainline power is on. We're going to cut the power. And again, on the CyberPower, just like the APC, a nice beautiful sine wave coming in. And just to show you that this is not a malfunctioning multimeter, you can see this modified sine wave. Again, not as bad as a square wave, but this is not the kind of power you want to go into your sensitive audio equipment. So from the practical perspective, I started testing things out here in my office to see, where are my real world results here? And I was actually quite surprised at what I was seeing in the numbers perspective. For my main rig, and I designed it where one speaker would turn off if there was a power outage. So we're talking one Evolve 50 speaker, 100% output, my mixer, my laptop with its charger, my iPad with its charger, an in-ear monitor, a microphone, my digital mixer, a router. So there's quite a bit on this. And was showing anywhere between 25 to even up to 30 minutes, depending how much output was going out of it at the time. That's amazing. I would dare say real world result would be closer to 20 to 25. But the fact that I could always just turn the volume down, consume a bit less energy, and I could probably extend that quite a bit. Ceremony side-wise, with just digital mixer, my router, one microphone, and an Evolve 50, was showing well above 60 minutes of time, and that's just amazing. This could definitely stand in as a pure ceremony solution, compared to some of the other batteries that were out there that are modified sine wave or square wave. This is just an absolute no-brainer. This will fit in and do what it needs to do. So right now there is one negative with these. These are not, rack mountable, and through all my research, I have not found a good flight case to work with this. It might come to the point where I actually just build a pair of cases for this, but for right now, I actually have found this yoga strap on Amazon, and it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's definitely enough to wrap around it and carry it around. So at least gives me a good carrying point to bring it around. It's not, of course, going to protect it that well, but at least it gets me somewhere until I do a little bit more research before I actually embark to actually build some potential cases for this. So the fact that today you could actually find two models of battery backups that have sine wave outputs, that has filtering, that has the capacity, if you right size it, to give you many minutes, even an hour plus for a ceremony, and be able to tick off all the other boxes under $200. I mean, this is really a no-brainer. This replaces power conditioners, because this is conditioning the power coming in. You are getting a peace of mind that just cannot be surpassed otherwise. You do not want to fall into the situation that I did, where I was lucky. The couple was really awesome about it. They saw the lightning strike, especially Power of Love, Back to the Future. I mean, they really said, this is a sign. This is just so awesome, and it was so cool that they were just easygoing like that. But not every couple is going to be like that, and you just don't want to be stuck in a situation that you have this awkward pause. The seconds just feels like hours. And now that there are solutions out there that tick off all these, do it now. Well, there's a video, and I hope you liked it. If so, hit that thumbs up, click on subscribe, do whatever social media is telling you to do right now. A special shout out to the YouTubers who pushed me over 100 subscribers. It's so awesome. And if you like more videos like this, go ahead, check out the playlist for DJs only.